All right. We now, members, would go to item number 9, Delta Plan Interagency Implementation Committee, Ms. Ravazzini and Mr. Fiorini.
Is this on? Excellent.
You can. Why don't you just sit right here? Whoever wants to talk first, I leave it up to you too.
Well, let me serve an introduction. At the last council meeting, we discussed the charge of the implementation committee, and Taran and staff made a good presentation about the work that staff has been doing for several months in preparation for finalizing the understanding of how we're going to operate and who's going to be involved and what the goals will be. There was quite a bit of discussion on the part of council members offering suggested changes to the charge. I believe those have been incorporated and are reflected in the information that's in the board packet. Taryn is going to review for you that. She's going to discuss the core membership, and even as late as 5 o'clock last night, there were changes being made to the core membership makeup. So I look forward to Taran's report and the discussion to follow.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. Ravazzini.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. If you'll excuse me, I'm getting over a cold, so there may be a little frog that joins me throughout this. As you see from the staff report, we have a couple of action items, as Vice Chair Fiorini has mentioned. And what I'd like to do is just go over what those action items are, and then I'll be elaborating on them, and I'll take them in order. So if you'll bear with me, I'll just do a little reading here. What we're asking, as Mr. Fiorini said, would be endorsing the charge as revised. So we did incorporate the comments from council members to make the document that is currently an attachment in the binder. Secondly, staff is recommending affirmation of a core membership of 15 agencies to have representatives on this committee. And I will establish for you the criteria on how we selected those particular agencies as listed in the staff report. And then as well, we'll take this a little step further, and staff is recommending granting the committee chairman, in consultation with the core members, discretion to add to the core membership as necessary and appropriate to achieve success and effectiveness. And the purpose of this will become clear. Actually, we have an example of how this may work. That is partly what we were dealing with yesterday. So all of these actions will be set in a nice foundation of information, which I'll provide to you right now. Council and staff have discussed the committee, this Interagency Implementation Committee, and its role for really probably even a year before the plan was, in fact, approved by the council. And I have been on for 3 months now, and there's been a lot of talking even in the 3 months that I've been here, but obviously I have the same desire as you to move from talking to action. Fortunately, we have a chairman for this committee who is dedicated to action as well, so this will be a great time to begin. First, in response to some inquiries last at November's meeting, let me state that it's my expectation the committee will be having its first meeting in the spring, looking at March sometime. Particularly, I know the chairman has some thoughts on that as well. I'm not certain if you want to chime in now or
I've often thought that the logical timing for these high-level meetings would be in April, following the snow course, the final snow course measurement. It's the time when we have a very, very good idea of what the available water supply is going to be for the upcoming year. And then again in September, at the end of the irrigation season, when we have a pretty good idea of what the carryover is going to be. Those just seem to be logical times to schedule meetings. If we can put things together earlier than that, March, for example, I'm all in favor of that. But eventually, I would like to see we get on this hydraulic cycle, if you will, because that's very important information for the kinds of things that are going to be discussed at the implementation committee meetings.
Thank you. And so hopefully that gives you a sense of the timing, at least in the next quarter. Also, in response to, I think, some inquiries as well, particularly Mr. Norduff, I wanted to establish with the committee, my intent that we will be reporting to the committee monthly on, to the council, monthly on the committee's actions, any activities going on. The report could be made by the chairman himself, it could be made by our executive director or myself, but we will be doing monthly reporting to the council so that there is much more engagement and opportunity for review of activities.
Taryn, rather than activities, I would focus on results.
Okay. Reporting any results from the actions. Okay.
Any results or all the results that you're getting?
I will do absolutely my best.
Yeah, and I think the activities is a way of providing background, but it really should be results-oriented.
Certainly. In the meantime, prior to the meeting, I'll still be providing some more documentation and ways for engagement from the council to really kick off the committee's first meeting.
We talked about a report card, I think, in the last meeting, setting up your plan and then seeing how well you achieve it. And I think, with each report to the council should send a report back saying how you're doing and giving some suggestions, recommendations, directions. So you'll be writing to yourself for a few months back and forth.
I'm good at that.
So to the charge at hand, which is the attachment, you may notice that it is broader, more expansive than what was provided to you in November. So we did again incorporate council member interested contributions to that. We have planned for this charge to really establish the structure for the committee, so it'll help support really any interagency collaboration from a strategic point of view. Through the specificity, we've provided some objectives. I know, Mr. Norduff, you wanted to get more into the how of this committee and what it will be doing. And I wanted to explain to the council, staff has been working quite extensively on creating a draft charter with much more in-depth roles and responsibilities for the committee. This will help define more of the governing structure of the committee. What this is intended, however, the charter would be something I can bring to you in January. Upon approval of this charge, it'll help set the foundation for that, and then we can anticipate council member feedback and contribution to that document. One recommendation I have, because of the nuances of working with other independent agencies, is to encourage, as an expression, if you will, of a commitment to collaborate, is allowing then those agencies that are participating on the committee to add to that document. So maintaining, if you will, January, keeping it a draft document until essentially the first meeting of the committee so those agencies can contribute. It is recommended, again, in the spirit of collaboration to do that.
One would expect that the priorities and the activities of the council would dovetail pretty much with the priorities in 2014 of the council itself.
Yes, exactly. That is the intent, is to really connect all of the council's direction with what these other agencies are doing and their responsibilities under the plan, and tying that all in together and having them recognize that through this charter, which is...
Well, I said something a little bit different.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I mean, we're setting our priorities for 2014 from the council, and I would expect that the activities of the committee would be pretty much aligned with the priorities of the council.
That is the intent, to do that, absolutely. And then, because it is working with these other independent agencies, it'll be a way to figure out what is the best use of the kind of interagency collaborative forum that the committee is presenting. So there may be even additional supplements to that. If that is the council's wish, it seems a way to be efficient in terms of that, if I'm catching this correctly. If I may, with the charge, upon approval, this will give us a nice base from which to move forward, and the charter, the document that you can anticipate in January with more information, again, is something that you can see more movement and action with the formation of this committee. In moving forward to the core membership concept, I know this is a very challenging undertaking. Yes, please.
How about if I move to adopt the staff recommendation for the charge as a separate motion? Get that done, and then we can move on to the core membership. Is that okay?
That makes sense to me.
Okay, I will.
Let's see if you want to talk about the charge itself first. Mm-hmm. Let's do that. Is there a second to Mr. Rushdoller? Thank you. So if you briefly describe the charge and any changes made since the last meeting.
Certainly. What we have done on the charge is elaborate the authority that establishes the committee. This is incorporating a recommendation from Councilmember Damrell for establishing where the California Water Action Plan is supplementing the Delta Reform Act in terms of establishing this interagency committee. So the first two paragraphs elaborate on that authority. The charge right underneath in terms of the next two paragraphs are elaborating. We incorporated Councilmember Nordoff's exact language for the first paragraph and expounded on that. And then we elaborated in terms of establishing more objectives and the how, and trying to find the how part of this. We looked to the Delta Plan in Chapter 2. There are these bullet points which we then expanded on. So the Chapter 2 identified actions for the committee to take, so we took those and then elaborated on them. And so that is what's establishing this foundation from which the committee charter can be based.
This is a collaborative effort. You're dealing with other agencies. Now, are we getting a report card on their conduct, or their lack of conduct, or their lack of cooperation? How's this going to work?
Well, ultimately, our activity is all about implementing the recommendations in the Delta Plan.
Yeah.
And because all of those involve some other agency, the report card will be directed at reporting results. If there are no results, it will reflect on a particular agency who has responsibilities that, for whatever reason, did not get it done. And that will reflect on us as the coordinator, the synthesizer of these activities. It's more a report card on the status of the Delta Plan.
Do you get the sense that, I know it's maybe a little early to make this assessment, but as far as the collaboration with other agencies, are they in the game, or are they still, are you able to convince them or work with them further before you can assess that?
All the agencies we've discussed they understand the legislation that has directed us to do this and have been very cooperative thus far. I would anticipate if we are well organized and establish a good foundation with the charge, the roles and responsibilities, and are helpful and add value to the work that they're already charged to do, that it will be a meaningful and beneficial relationship.
I'd just like to note this report on reliability of the State Water Project released yesterday has 4 pages on our role as it relates to reliable water, and it fairly states, I think, the Delta Plan recommendations and policies on that, which I thought was a pretty good step forward to getting the council in a position where our policies and recommendations actually have some impact. No guarantees, of course, but this is a pretty important document, and one with great political sensitivity as well.
Without wordsmithing this too much, I would like to put in some language that, in addition, and I think it's in the first paragraph, where we're talking about the orchestrating the timely and orderly implementation of actions consistent with the policies and recommendations outlined in the Delta Plan. I'd like to add in there, and more specifically, with the annual priorities set by the council. And I'm sure that's going to be the case. And I'm not going to go down in the weeds and suggest that for all of these things you do a timeline, when you expect certain results to happen, because that's your report card. And then you just comment on the timelines, whether you've made it or not. And if you've missed it, on the milestones, why, and what you're going to do about it.
I'll accept that as a friendly amendment.
Okay, Mr. Rustoller, would that be acceptable? Okay, we're not voting yet on this issue, but the suggestion will be part of the motion we do vote on. Okay, other questions on the charge? Okay, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to the council on the charge to the implementation committee? Ladies, do we have any blue forms submitted? Here, none. Anyone in the audience? See none. Okay, on the motion and the second, starting with Mr. Nordhoff.
Nordhoff, aye.
Johnston, aye.
Damn, okay.
Rustoller, aye.
Fiorini, aye.
Eisenberg, aye. Okay, we've got a 6-0 on the charge. Let's now turn to the composition. Folks, how do you want to proceed on that? Ms. Ravizini?
Yes, thank you. At the direction of the council to look at formulating a manageable committee to move forward with assisting the council in implementing the Delta Plan, this is a very challenging undertaking. Staff has looked at this from so many different ways. And we do, of course, have limited direction from the legislature, so we have had to be somewhat creative, as mentioned. But there is no one right way to do this, and so we're hoping to leave some flexibility here for the simple fact that the issues will end up driving a lot of what the committee will do, and that could require more involvement or less involvement, depending. So in looking at this, we have anchored our approach, our initial approach, if you will, in the Delta Reform Act, in the Delta Plan, and we're looking at those two for guidance. We've evaluated what is necessary and manageable at this beginning stage of the committee's involvement in implementation. So in recommending to the council the 15-agency core membership, we're responding to the council's interest in starting smaller and more focused with the intent to, again, reach out as needed and appropriate. There are a lot of challenges to this, administrative challenges, coordination challenges, political challenges, and those could be really exacerbated through a much larger and undefined group. So we needed to draw a line somewhere. So in making the determination of the list, I'm going to explain what that list in front of you is. I realize it may not be quite as clear. What staff did was we combed through the 14 policies and the 73 recommendations, and we used the following criteria. We identified particular agencies that are listed in the Delta Plan as lead agencies, and they've been identified multiple times in the plan as lead agencies, establishing more involvement there from those agencies. These agencies are responsible for actions in multiple chapters as well. So that's giving more of a cross-disciplinary approach for those agencies, getting them more involved, if you will, in the Delta Plan as a whole. Looking at these agencies as being responsible for actions that are closely related to Delta Stewardship Council priorities. Also looking at these agencies as having the ability to offer necessary leadership, time, staffing, resources where we can ask more from these agencies. With regard to the federal agencies that are listed there, they have relevant interests in the Delta. Some even have responsibilities under the plan, and their participation on this committee will continue the essential state and federal partnership. If I may, that is supported through the Delta Reform Act in Water Code Section 85082, where the council shall develop and implement a strategy to appropriately engage participation of the federal agencies with responsibilities in the Delta Plan. So this is tying them in. This is part of that strategy to further engage the federal agencies. Additionally, what we'd like to do in terms of a recommendation is extend an invitation to the secretaries of the drafting agencies of the California Water Action Plan. Within that action plan, there is specific direction for all relevant agencies to be involved and participate with this committee, and we'd like to show a stronger connection to the administration here. So there may seem to be more redundancy by having perhaps the Secretary of Natural Resources agency on the committee along with his other departments such as Department of Water Resources and Fish and Wildlife, but yet it's a way to tie more closely with this collaborative effort with the guidance of the administration as well. So that is how we came up with 15 agencies.
There are actually 16 agencies listed on page 2.
Might that include us, or?
Yes.
Okay, so I think
We
that
are
would be
on the
with the
list,
exception of
right.
us. Sorry. So 16, thank you. As well, these agencies are also really the primary agencies, government agencies that the council will be requiring reports from on issues related to implementation of the Delta Plan. Knowing that we'd be requesting much more from them, it also seemed relevant to have them be part of this core membership, and that is through Water Code Section 85210, subsection H. So staff, really, again, in juggling with all of this, we know that these agencies are busy. We know that they have plenty of other things to do, but they are also responsible for actions within the Delta Plan. So we know that they have staffing issues, just as we do, so we don't want to waste anyone's time here. Thus, taking what would be an indeterminate number of agencies and saying they're on the committee, this is helping to focus staff efforts. And so we're acknowledging that these particular agencies are essential then for engagement, active engagement on the committee and working with the council.
Excuse me, Taryn, are you going to give some guidance on the level of the representative that you're looking for?
Yes, in the Delta Plan, it is requested that director or executive director level, even secretary level, undersecretary level, so the highest level that we can, for the simple fact that those representatives, the council will be, essentially through the design of the committee, asking these representatives to be able to commit their agencies.
So you want decision makers?
Correct, thank you. That was an easier answer, thank you. So yes, we want those representatives to be able to have the authority to be active. Yes, Randy?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to offer the staff recommendation for the core membership, including the Central Valley Flood Protection Board. This was the issue that came up yesterday, and if I get a second, I'll comment on it.
Okay. Second, Mr. Johnston.
Okay. I believe that the staff has struck the right balance. We have a good mix of state, federal, and Delta interests represented at the table. The addition of the flood board, and Bill Edgar is here if he wishes to speak to this, is a key component in something we're going to take up later, the Delta Levy Investment Program. They have a responsibility to be involved in that as per RRR4, I think, in our Delta plan. And so we've been discussing this for some time, and yesterday we decided it would be good to include them if Mr. Edgar would be willing to participate. So we'll wait to hear public comment, but it's my strong recommendation that we begin with this makeup. And these are the agencies that will be responsible to implement the priorities that have been set by the council. And then we will reserve the right to add to this in future dates. And Tarn will talk to you. I don't know, it wasn't me. But Tarn will talk to you about that as a third recommendation. Okay?
Ooh.
Line.
Is that yours?
That's installer.
that Roostaller guy. What can you say?
See, they don't want me to talk.
Okay. Questions by members of the council?
I have a question.
Yes, Larry.
I don't know if this thing's work. Does this work?
I think you sound.
You know,
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
is this thing ready to blow up?
Don't move.
I understand the reasoning and support the reasoning for having a workable group, because there's nothing worse than having 200 people on your committee and then trying to gather them all and get them to show up and have somebody there that actually knows what's going on. So I support that. The question I have is, and you kind of touched on it when you said to have the ability to add as necessary. Does that mean that you would add these people as a temporary or ex officio or subcommittee based on just the issue at hand? I guess.
Any of the activities that will be initiated will not be short-term. They will be long-term, a year or more. So if there is a need to add a particular agency or multiple agencies because of the particular activity that's going on, that may be, they may be there as long as that activity is ongoing, and they may be excused after that activity is completed. We haven't talked about work groups. What we have to keep in mind is that these implementation committee meetings are probably going to be held once every 6 months, and it's more of a status report on activity. There's going to be a whole host of groups working on these things regularly, daily, weekly, and it's at that level that everyone, public, interests, stakeholders, other agencies will be involved. But at the implementation committee level, we're trying to keep it to a manageable level, and recognizing that as the activities change over the course of time, we may have to draw in others to make sure that we have all the right people at the table. But this, I believe, is a good place to start.
Okay. The only thing that I've seen that looks like it might be considered would be the either North, Central, or South Delta Water Agency, in like one representing the three. So that group of folks gets a seat at the table versus being on the menu.
We've talked about that. We've talked about how to include reclamation districts. We've talked about how to include county interests. And we think we have the county interests covered through the Delta Protection Commission. We believe that the reclamation districts, and Melinda Terry helped me last month identifying the Central Valley Flood Protection Board as an agency that is intimately involved with reclamation districts. So there is a voice there. As far as the North, Central, and South Delta water agencies, to this point, it's not a part of our recommendation, but that could be an add later on.
May I also supplement this as well in terms of providing more information? The committee is intended to be open to the public. This will be a public meeting where full participation is encouraged. So there should be transparency and openness for this. The work groups, to further what Chairman Fiorini was saying, is that those will then be specifically targeted where everyone can get rolling up their sleeves and get more involved. So we're looking at this core membership in terms of establishing a group that is carrying the brunt of Delta Plan activities in addition to the council, whereas the committee meetings will be available for anyone to participate and contribute, because it does have to be a collaborative effort. If I may, with regard to the Central Valley Flood Protection Board, this is a perfect example of taking that core membership with the criteria that I referenced, and then taking a step further, seeing how the agenda and the priorities of the council will move forward to adding an agency, a relevant agency, to this core membership, simply because we do have that levy prioritization. This is extremely important and very relevant to have the Central Valley Flood Protection Board on the core membership. There may become a time where those activities are essentially completed and will not require everyone's attendance at these meetings, and it's a way to work with the reality that these agencies have plenty of other things to do. So we're trying to create some openness and flexibility here. So the Central Valley Flood Protection Board is an example of how the number 3 action item is offering the chairman some discretion, which he will be coming to the council to approve, but allowing that flexibility to work with those priorities as the council directs and as the issues determine.
I can understand how there's a lot of folks here that want to know, want to be clued in on what's going on. I mean, that aren't listed on the core membership. And it seems to me that the key here is transparency, that people know what's going on, because there's going to be some time between meetings, and staff will be doing things, whether it's an agency, whether it's our staff. I mean, the bottom line is, if people know what's going on and can respond and can participate, you're going to alleviate a lot of the concerns, I think, that might be expressed about we're not on this core group. And as long as that is a commitment, which I'm sure, Andy, that's going to be your modus operandi, I think that's going to be very helpful, and I think it'll be to be inclusive and be transparent when any of those issues affect the various. Because I can see groups out of the Delta down in the Central Valley that are going to want to have their nose under the tent, and understandably, it affects them. So, but let me one thing on that aside. I think you ought to consider, not necessarily a report card, but I think you should, in addition to the secretaries being made part of this, I think you need to report to this Water Action Plan group that does meet in the governor's office, and of course Phil's involved in that, and Randy, you are maybe as well, I don't know, but they should be kept up to speed on this implementation program in some way, whether it's a report card or how you want to describe it, but on a regular basis. I think that would really engage the administration more so than just dealing with individual secretaries. If you just, this is what's going on, this is the problems we're facing, whatever it happens to be, how you're going to format that, I would definitely put them on the mailing list and that discussion agenda when they do meet. I mean, I feel you're more directly involved in that group, or maybe both of you are, but what's your thought about that?
No, that's a good point, and we've already had conversations. The governor, or the Water Action Plan cites the Delta Stewardship Council as one of the implementing agencies, so they recognize our role. We've had conversations about that, and there will be further conversations as we better define the work of the
official updates.
Exactly.
That, I think, so they know things are happening or not happening. That kind of report of some type would be extremely important.
We'll make that happen.
Okay.
Okay, let's get public testimony on